Hello learners, this is Shravanti Kundu Saha, Assistant Professor, Department of English at Pandit Sundarlal Sharma Open University, Chhattisgarh, Bilaspur. I welcome you all to another virtual lecture. After finishing Ode to a Nightingale and Ode on a Grecian Urn, in this video we are going to read another ode by John Keats, To Autumn. If all of you have already watched the videos on Ode to a Nightingale and Ode on a Grecian Urn, then this lecture will be very helpful for you. But if you have not, I would strongly recommend you to go through these two odes after you finish watching this lecture. In the odes, Ode to a Nightingale and Ode on a Grecian Urn, you will be able to realize various forms of expression in odes alongside the variety of subjective emotions. In this video, we are going to discuss the context, different images, and also talk about the themes of the poem. The importance to read the ode lies in the fact that they imitate Keats's questions and his quest for immortality. Let's start the ode to autumn. To Autumn is considered one of the 5 great odes John Keats composed in the year 1819. The ode personifies and dramatizes the season of autumn, features many of Keats's signature techniques like vivid imagery, sonorous rhymes and rhythms, and rich metaphors. In the previous videos, we have discussed Keats's life and his achievements and the tragedy of his early death. Still, to provide you a short recap, here the present slide provides you the important information about the author. Keats was born on October 31st, 1795 in London, few years after the French Revolution. He belongs to the second generation of Romantic poets. In a very young age, he lost his parents. In 1818, while nursing his brother Tom, he falls in love with Fanny Brawne. He studied medicine and achieved his aim and became an apothecary surgeon. Still, he decides to follow his passion in writing. Between 1818 to 1819, he gave us the fine gift of his poetry. In 1819, in the month of February, Keats died after suffering a prolonged illness due to tuberculosis. In his short life, he manages to write some immortal verses, one of which we are going to cover today. As a literary movement, Romantic poetry is a breakaway from the previous notion of writing poetry. Keats' writing style also incorporates simple language. John Keats was not only the last but also the most perfect of the Romantics. While Wordsworth was reforming poetry and upholding the moral laws, Walter Scott merely telling romantic stories, and Byron voicing his own egoism and the political discontent of the times, and Shelley advocating impossible reforms. Keats lived away from men and politics, worshipping beauty like a devotee. Keats's poetry captures almost all the features of Romantic poetry, such as subjectivity, escapism, sensuousness, love for beauty and nature, melancholy note, and lyricism. For example, Ode on a Grecian Urn is a record of his personality and his philosophy of beauty, and in Ode to a Nightingale, he escapes to the dreamland of everlasting beauty and romance, the bower of the nightingale, which is free from the weariness, the fever, and the fret of human life. Keats wrote To Autumn on September 1819. He was inspired by his daily walks in and around Winchester during autumn. The season personifies as a series of figures working in the barns and fields, evoking the beauty and the luxuriant abundance of the scene. Nevertheless, there is awareness that the nature follows an eternal cycle. Spring's promises and summer's growth culminate in the autumn harvest. Inevitably, winter will follow. Here, there is a poignant sense of impending loss, a subtle reminder of potential conflict between joy and pain. This reflects the poet's serene and mature acceptance of his own mortality. Moreover, the seed of this ode is very much prominent in Keats's letter to his friend J. H. Reynolds, which he wrote from Winchester in September 22, 1819. There Keats writes, "How beautiful the season is now! How fine the air! The temperament sharpens about it. Really, without joking, chaste weather, dying skies. I never like subtle fields so much as now. Better than the chilly green of the springs. Somehow a stubble field looks warm in the same way that some pictures look warm. This struck me so much in my Sunday's walk that I composed upon it." The letter was written just after he completed this poem. Here, a subconscious comparison between spring and autumn is very much hinted. Here, he categorically mentions that he preferred the season of autumn more than the spring. The poem is shorter than the Ode to a Nightingale and Ode on a Grecian Urn. It contains only 3 stanzas. Thus, within a very compact structure, Keats provides his understanding of the season. The poem is an ode, and here follows the characteristics of it. Ode is a ceremonious poem on an occasion of public or private dignity in which personal emotions, generally meditations, are united. Ode glorifies nature and tries to establish a link between human life and nature. In this slide, some characteristics and different type of odes are also mentioned. Further, in this slide, a brief synopsis of the poem is mentioned for better understanding. John Keats says, "To autumn is an ode to the season of fall, comprising 3 stanzas and utilizing a regular rhyme scheme and meter." The speaker begins by describing autumn as the season of mist and mellow fruitfulness. The season of mist and mellow fruitfulness suggest a mysterious early morning sky during autumn. And there is a mellow fruitfulness, meaning a mild fruitfulness where the loud noises are missing and the earth is full of ripe crops. Now the question comes, how can a season be silent or loud? The reference of rainy season with storm and thunder can be termed as a loud season, whereas autumn does not have such kind of fury, rather it comprises calmness. Everywhere the ripe vegetables and fruits decorate the earth. Further, the poet addresses autumn as close bosom friend of the maturing sun. Here we, the readers, need to understand the poet's location geographically, which is in the northern hemisphere. In the month of September, which the season of autumn, the sun takes a maturing turn and moves towards winter solstice, the longest night of the year. And this moment when the poet is writing this poem in the season of autumn is the autumnal equinox moment. And what is autumnal equinox? The sun shines directly overhead the equator during the autumnal equinox, and the day and the night are roughly equal in length everywhere. So the sun is getting old and the light of the sun loses its power as winter is approaching. Thus the poet refers the sun as a maturing sun. Further, Keats takes a different stand, comparing it to other poets who mostly associates autumn as a decaying season and praises spring as a youthful one. But Keats does not use any word representing decay, rather he associates this season with fruitfulness. His reference to earth and sun announces the friendship between earth and sun to make it a season of ripeness. Then Keats mentions the close friendship of autumn and the sun that represents 4 things. They are as follows. Firstly, in the lines, conspiring with him how to load the bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch even run. Here the author beautifully pictures the roofs of huts which are covered by the vines full of fruits. The second image is to bend with apples mossed cottage trees and fill all the fruits with ripeness to the core. The season of abundance is here marked through the pictorial description of the apple trees. The trees are blessed with fruitfulness, and because of the weight of the apples, the trees are bent upon the cottages. The third thing the friendship of the sun and the autumn does is to swell the gourd and plumb the hazel shells with a sweet kernel. Gourd is a large fruit, and the poet says the ripeness of the season make the gourd swell up, and at the same time the hazelnuts, the small fruit, is also filled with sweetness, as the autumn does not even neglect it. Keats here reflects upon the cycle of life. Autumn is not just a season offering fruits, but it also takes care of the budding more. It is promises renewal of life and thus offers hope too. The fruits not only carry the sweetness in them but also captures the hope for future generations. And the fourth thing the friendship offers is, and still more latter, flower for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer hath overbrimmed their clammy cells. According to the speaker, autumn and the sun motivates latter flowers to bloom for the bees. Autumn ensures the abundance of flowers for the bees in the springtime. The spring makes the bees hallucinate that summer is everlasting and the season of cold will never come. Thus, the speaker details autumn's association with its close bosom friend, the sun, stating that the pair work together to ensure that vines are laden with fruits and apples are able to grow ripe. This stanza identifies a number of different types of fruits and vegetables which will be ready for harvest in autumn, including gourds and hazelnuts. The second stanza begins, "Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store?" Here the poet is addressing autumn, and when he is addressing the season, he encourages a tone of conversation here. The rhetorical figure of personification makes the autumn a silent listener in the poem, as the poet asks questions to it and answers them himself. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a grainy floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or a half-wreathed furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next, south and all its twinned flowers. And sometime like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cedar press with a patient look thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. The flow of the stanza is very slow, as if the poet has all the time. The irony here hinted is that time for Keats is running out for his deadly disease. So we need to look at the idea of time and laziness here. Keats marks that autumn, though had a very beautiful nature, still it symbolizes laziness. Why? Because unlike spring, where the nature is preparing itself for the upcoming fruits and also recovers from the winter, autumn can enjoy the fruits without much work. Autumn is the time to pick what one harvested. The worth of all the year's work is reflected in autumn. In this stanza, the figure of autumn is viewed as a fertile female goddess who is sitting carelessly on a grainy floor with hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind. Another thing we need to note here is the use of alliteration and the soft vowel sounds, as it creates the drowsiness, and why Is this drowsiness? It is because of the fume of the poppies. The opiated condition of autumn is here mentioned. She is somewhat in a careless manner plucking the harvest as thy hook spears the neck swath and all its twin flowers. She is not very much active here. The stanza is gradually going towards in a state of intoxication. Moreover, when the poet uses the word cider instead of apple, he hints towards decay. Cider is a drink made from overripe apples, and what the autumn is here doing? She is patiently looking at the cider press where the juice is extracted, as the poet mentions, oozing hours by hours. Keats here celebrates stagnancy. When a fruit is fully ripe, it goes towards decay, as there is no way back. Autumn is the high point or the zenith a season can achieve. We see morning dies into afternoon as stanza 1 progresses to stanza 2, while afternoon fades into evening in the third stanza. The day is dying. We see harvest and energy fade into stations and sleep from the first stanza to the second. The apple cider, ready to be drunk, patiently awaits the close of day at the end of the second stanza. The third and the final stanza serves to highlight autumn's particular elegance as opposed to the season poets traditionally valorize, that is spring. The speaker begins, "Where are the song of spring? Ah, where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too." People generally talk about spring. Even in Shelley's Ode to the West Wind, we can witness, he says that if winter comes, can spring be far behind? As if winter has no purpose of its own. It is a season to announce the coming of spring. But in Keats's understanding of the seasons, we can find that he attributes same importance to each seasons. He believes in the life cycle where each stage has its own beauty and purpose. The tone here celebrates the murmurs of dried off leaves. Keats writes, "While bare clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble pane with rosy hue, then in a willful choir the small grants moan among the river swallows borne aloft, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full grown lambs loud blit from hilly brown. Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the red-breast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies." Here he provides another list of things which we can enjoy through our auditory sense in the season of autumn. The music of autumn does not need the green hue of spring. Here we can witness Keats' sensuousness, as we already mentioned that Keats is a sensuous poet in the previous lecture on Ode to a Nightingale. Here also he pays a great attention to the elements of nature, and through his imagery he goes beyond the senses. Thus he can sense the image and transfuse them with music. So here in this stanza we can identify the sound of small insects flying along with the wind and full-grown lambs, hedge crickets singing. Here the rural England is picturized. The unusual references are representing the isolated place of the pastoral setting. Further, the mention of the treble soft voice of the robin redbreast. Treble means the highest range of sounds used in music, thus it is not a soft music. So when he mentions of the treble soft, he hints the contradiction. The treble soft voice of robin announces the coming of the winter. Thus, though the poem begins with the early autumn, now in the third stanza we are witnessing the advancement of the winter. The flow of the poem is here, hinting the time. Unlike the frozen urn in Ode on a Grecian Urn, time here has its motion. Further, the poem ends with mentioning gathering swallows twitter in the skies. The abrupt ending of the poem might create some surprise as to why Keats ends the poem without providing any kind of concluding philosophical or rational argument. So, to understand Keats's vision towards life, we need to look into the line gathering swallows twitter in the skies. Now, swallows are migratory birds in the northern hemisphere who migrates towards south in winter. So, here the gathering of the birds, swallows, represent the preparation for the upcoming journey. Thus, the last line is not just about gathering of the birds, rather it is the image of deserting. Thus, autumn is not just a season creating the link between monsoon and the winter, rather it is a season with greater purpose to offer ripeness, and most importantly it knows how to spontaneously relinquish all claims upon nature. The final stanza's loaded diction, willful and mourn, contributes to the sense that this death of life is both sad and glorious because it is a part of eternity. Thus, it can be truly said, though Keats wrote this poem in September during the advent of autumn, but he, through his sensory capability, is able to predict the maturity of autumn. Even through the ripeness of autumn, he also enjoys the maturity. Now, coming to the themes, the important themes addressed in this poem are the power of nature. The poem expresses reverence and awe for the great changes wrought by nature as autumn brings its richness to the landscape. Next, the passage of time. The stage of autumn are illustrated by the poem's 3 stanzas, from ripening to harvesting to the turn towards winter. Thirdly, the consolation of beauty. Keats's line celebrates the great beauty of autumn even as they evoke a somber sensibility. Further, we need to look into Keats's use of literary devices. In this poem, literary devices captures the beauty of autumn. The first device is personification. Personification is to give human characteristics to non-human things. Keats has used personification in the opening line of the poem. Next is simile. A simile is a figure of speech used to compare an object, animal or person with another object or person or animal to make its meaning clear. Keats has used simile in the 19th line, and sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep. Then the next device is apostrophe. An apostrophe is a device used to refer to a passionate address of a non-living thing. The poet has used this device in the 12th line, where it is stated as, "Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store?" In this line, the poet directly addresses the imaginary character autumn. The use of imagery makes the reader visualize the writer's feeling and emotion. Keats says imagery evokes the perception of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and for instance, in the first stanza, he uses visual imagery such as mossed cottage trees. Then comes the rhetorical question. Rhetorical question is often used to make a point and not to receive an answer. Keats has posed rhetorical question in the second and the third stanza to emphasize his point, such as, "Where are the song of spring?" Further, some other literary devices are also enlisted in this slide. So that's all for today. In this video, we have completed another ode by John Keats to autumn, and soon we will meet again with another video. Till then, stay happy. Thank you for watching.